like Venezuelan gangs have overtaken an apartment complex. I'm saying it's scary that people believe it immediately, right? And then once, because it corresponds to like two key fears that they have, which is one, crime is completely exploded and people are hiding the truth, and two, immigrants are causing it. Citing like the legal team hired by the property owners. Like, you're just doubling down on some crazy, man. It's crazy. I don't understand it. Like, yeah, of course the lawyers, the legal team hired by the property owners is going to continue along with the lie, dude. And for the record, there is like, no one is making a point that there aren't any gang members at all in these apartment complexes. There might be. Okay, there might be. What? Here's what Uncle Cedar said about your coverage.
We can be somewhat of an antidote. I'm glad Hasan is out there doing that kind of stuff. It's really important. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, you know, like as I articulated, if I was having a conversation with me 12 years ago, or 16 years ago, and I'd be like, you know, we need, there's going to be like a 15-year-old kid on Justin TV or whatever existed at that time, talking about Venezuelan gangs taking over a place in Aurora, Colorado. We really need to sort of push back on that. I would have been like, you're insane, dude. But that's the culture that we have right now. So it
just makes me sad that he's not like, it does make me sad because like, Cenk truly is a progressive person at his heart, and he's just like so captive to this crime is skyrocketing and everyone is secretly like hiding the truth narratives that he is lost in the sauce. It makes me sad. It's like watching a loved one get overtaken by like vaccine conspiracies. You know what I mean? It's literally, it is literally what's going on. It's the same attitude. Once you have this right-wing slant on a particular issue, you never listen to reason. You don't care about the inconsistencies. You don't care about the data whatsoever. You can't help people come to a conclusion logically if they didn't arrive at the falsehood by using logic. And once you let that reactionary sentiment seep in, the unfortunate reality is that there is a lot of other openings for you. It opens the door up. That's why, like, you see it so much with fallen fans, you know? People who used to formerly be, like, long-term community members avoiding ads at the top of the hour over and over again for months, you know? All of a sudden, there's, like, one issue where they come in and they're like, I don't think that sounds right. And then they pop off at me, and I respond in kind with that same exact energy. And then they feel embarrassed, and they feel upset, right? And then they go and seek out other communities that are going to, like the Israel situation is a perfect example of this, right? There were a lot of former community members who like left, and some of them actually became like massive Bonarelli diehards. There were so many goddamn posts like, oh, dude, I left the community. I see the light now. All this. And then you look at their logs when they come back in. You look at their logs, and they went from like being to literally defending saying the N-word over the course of like 2 to 3 months. Like, how the f do you change your entire worldview that fast? It blows my mind. Like, you have no firmly held convictions and principles that guide your opinions at all. You just are desperately seeking validation and a sense of comfort and security from a sense of community. And then like one thing changes your entire worldview. You turn around and you seek out a different community, and then you literally adopt all of the points of view that that community represents, even ones that you know, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, you would have thought was abhorrent. It's crazy. I think it's genuinely about whether your empathy was genuine or if you just wanted to feel like you belonged. Yeah. But yeah, it just sucks. And it's scary. Like I said, like in that situation, it's like scary because you look at Cenk on the issue of crime, and I think that the attitude that you have, like once the beliefs kick in and you're just like, nah, dog, I personally think that like crime is a massive problem, and there's like a coordinated effort by, you know, Democrat DAs, like liberal DAs, progressive DAs to just like hide the truth about crime. and the cops are actually playing a role in this as well, and it's actually all around us, and you start leaning into the confirmation bias, I think that opens up the door to believing a whole bunch of other right-wing, because it triggers something in your mind, you know? I think it literally triggers something in your mind where you're like, well, I think everyone is lying, and my personal anecdotes are infinitely more valuable in this circumstance than what like even mainstream media might be covering on a daily basis, right? This is something I try to push people away from. I rely on local news, okay? I rely on local news. I rely on network television. I rely on objective sources of media that present themselves as unbiased and objective on a regular basis. But in that process, I always will describe to you, like, here, right? They're going to usually side with capital. And in instances where they don't, it's because they have to maintain this like shred of legitimacy when push comes to shove. But that doesn't mean that I still don't care about the veracity, or that I don't care about like mainstream media. I'm just going to unconditionally be like, I'm looking for, you know, websites that only agree with me, right? That's why I try to explain to chatters like what I do is holding your hand through the process of going through the media, combing through articles. But once you allow your opinion not to be motivated by truth, critical thinking, logic, empirical evidence, and you instead start swapping that out with like fear and personal anecdotes that are very emotion invoking, you all of a sudden, I think, unlock a different part of your brain where you're like, well, I can apply this level of illogical thinking to anything else. Not gonna lie, when I first started watching you in the morning and at night on YouTube years ago, the algo kept pushing me orbiter vids. I finally weeded it out by doing not interested in all of them and strictly only using Hasan Hub for offline news consumption. Yeah, YouTube does have that, you know, right-wing slant in it for sure. They want to keep you on the website for as long as possible. So they're like, oh, it seems like you like this Hasan guy. Well, you'll definitely like this guy on him. And some of you do watch it probably because they arrived at their opinion logically and you disagree. So your opinion must be illogical and therefore your other opinions no longer hold as much weight. Vehemently disagree with your race semantics on that Discord chat, but that's just one thing out of like 1,000 opinions. A lot of people can no longer have civil disagreements. It's all or nothing. Vehemently disagree with your race semantics on that Discord chat? What do you mean? My race semantics? Like, do you honestly still think that I'm like I love that this person is at least a little bit more reasonable. They're like, listen, you're an anti-white piece, but having said that, I still can disagree with you on that and not on other issues. Respect, you know, respect. I mean, this is the best we're going to get. I think slowly but surely you will get there on other issues too. Because I don't just like arrive at conclusions and just push that. I will tell you the steps I took to get there. You know what I mean? Anyway, but like I said, this is a scary thing that's going on. And no, I don't mean it's scary that like Venezuelan gangs have overtaken an apartment complex. I'm saying it's scary that people believe it immediately, right? And then once, because it corresponds to like two key fears that they have, which is one, crime is completely exploded and people are hiding the truth. And two, immigrants are causing it. And there is like an unrestricted amount of immigration coming into the country. Many of them are criminals. You then end up being so fearful and you desperately seek out things that confirm your biases. Like, and the local media will lean into that mass hysteria because it drives clicks, because if it bleeds, it leads. So then because local news also pushes that narrative, it makes it so much easier to be victim to misinformation. If you cannot analyze the news with critical thinking, if you cannot look at this story with a critical lens, okay, then you're gonna, there's plenty of fake out there that will help you feel like you were right all along and everyone else was wrong all along. A Denver law firm hired to look for an alleged gang takeover in an Aurora apartment building says they found the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang began taking over the Whispering Pines apartments in late 2023. This also, by the way, the law firm that was hired by the property managers. That's number one. Of course, they're literally looking for any sort of extra evidence to beef up this narrative. Okay. Since then, the gang is engaged in violent assaults, threats of extortion, strong arm tactics, and as they exerted a stranglehold on the Aurora apartment complex. That's according to a letter sent to the Aurora mayor, Mike Kaufman, Aurora city manager, Jason Batchelor, and the interim police chief that was obtained by CBS News Colorado. Each page of the 9-page report labeled confidential treatment requested, the Perkins Coie law firm shared its findings on August 9th with Aurora's top administrators. The evidence we have reviewed indicates that gang members are engaging in flagrant trespass violations, assaults and battery, human trafficking, and sexual abuse of minors, unlawful firearms possession, extortion, and other criminal activities, often targeting vulnerable Venezuelan and other immigrant populations. Monk did not respond to emails or phone calls from CBS News Colorado, and a second associate of the law firm did not respond to inquiries from CBS News Colorado. The firm says it represents the lender for Whispering Pines apartment, 1357 Helena Street, one of the several Aurora apartment buildings allegedly controlled by the Tren de Aragua gang. The law firm says it interviewed witnesses and reviewed video from the Whispering Pines for its investigation. The letter marks the first time specific details and incidents have been revealed about how the gang allegedly took over the apartments and how they've been operating. Tren de Aragua has threatened and in certain instances apparently actively attempted to kill members of the Whispering Pines management, according to the report. Investigators interviewed the property manager who had 15 years of experience in the industry. The property manager said he had never seen anything remotely like the Tren de Aragua takeover of the Whispering Pines in his entire career. Whispering Pines consists of 54 apartments with rent ranging from $1,400 to $2,000 a month. According to the report, tenants are generally working-class Hispanic families with families and children. Property managers told the law firm he started his job in January 2024, but TDA had already been establishing a presence in the apartments before his employment. Except the complications here for this story, okay? Yeah, by the way, the numbers are crazy. $1,400 to $2,000 for a slum in a state of dire disrepair. Now, one thing you need to consider, I mean, that's the real gang, by the way. That's the real criminal. What you need to understand is that the municipalities' problems with CBZ management, which is not just this Aurora apartment, but 4 other properties in Aurora, began years prior to this gang takeover. Okay? Like the best example of this is if you can't just like find the actual tenants to speak to them, which many people have done. Denver PSL, one of the groups that actually went and talked to the tenants directly. The tenants themselves also held a press conference being like, yeah, we're being evicted because the conditions here are dire and the government has condemned this building. Okay. But if you don't have access to that information, you should at least, and we covered all of that for the record in my YouTube video, you can watch it. But if you don't have access to any of that information, you should at the very least understand that the actual incidents involving the municipality and this property management group and the actual complaints came far before this supposed gang takeover. So how does that work? How does that work? Did they take over before and caused the property management company to not hire a private trash company to pick up the trash? Because when you even look at all of the narratives out there, they're like, oh, they were piling on trash. It's like, dog, the trash is in the trash container. It's piled up inside the trash container, which means that the developer, the property manager, did not actually hire waste management. It is up to them to hire waste management. It is not up to the tenants to get together and hire waste management. There has never been an instance where you lived in an apartment complex and you literally personally went out of your way to hire waste management. In most circumstances, it's handled by the municipality. In Colorado, led by, obviously, a neoliberal Democrat for a governor, it seems like it's a libertarian paradise. Okay? So who needs to actually pick up the trash in that instance is not the tenants. The tenants are throwing the trash where they're supposed to. So, like, what's frustrating about this entire story, the investigators who authored the report called this an organized crime tactic. They say gang members then said they were taking over vacant units in Whispering Pines and would start collecting rent from tenants. This is our business plan, one gang member told the housekeeper. If he, property manager, doesn't like it, we'll fill him with... Following that incident, the report says video footage shows TDA gang members violently breaking into vacant apartments, kicking doors open, and moving Venezuelan immigrants into the empty apartments. This conduct's brazen and public nature exhibits the suspected gang member's sense of comfort and control consistent with their taking over the property and not fearing the law enforcement of the property management. Investigators concluded that gang members have been extorting rents from residents they moved into the vacant units. The property manager further shared that TDA now uses the formerly vacant units to host parties where they serve and child. CBS News Colorado also obtained internal Aurora police documents from June that appear to support some of the law firm's conclusions. An officer reported responding to a call from a house cleaner at Whispering Pines. He says she told police she was threatened that she needed to give up the keys to the vacant apartments of the Whispering Pine apartment so that a group of Venezuelans could move into the Whispering Pine apartments. The officer reported suspects left, but not before warning her to comply or else they would her or her family. The Aurora officer wrote to fellow officers, I would highly recommend you guys take 2 to 3 friends with you when responding to any calls there. Late Wednesday afternoon, a City Aurora spokesperson confirmed they had received the letter and immediately included in its ongoing investigative work. Once again, none of this factors in to the municipality's active court case against this property developer. It is a suspiciously neat little narrative that they carved out this past month when they literally had, when the active court was supposed to come to a close, they were able to successfully push the court date back into February when this massive media cycle started pumping this Venezuelan gang narrative. Okay? We used to get letters from attorneys all the time alleging all kinds of happening, most of it bogus, some of it threatening the city for taking action. This was likely leaked by Jurinsky or Sundberg to CBS, which had a few reporters friendly with the Hogs on council. Also important to note that Curtis Gardner, at-large council member, works for Waste Management. Part of the reason why we couldn't change the system. Yeah. Roaches, mice, garbage, feces plague residents at Aurora. Oh, you see, they don't have no kinds of lock-on doors, Tashara Williams said. She's a resident of the Bahamas apartment building. I feel terrible. I don't feel safe here. My kids don't even feel safe. They can't even lay down on their couch without something crawling up on them. Maintenance crews were on site picking up some garbage, but they berated Williams about an eviction notice. I'm not paying rent and no nasty thing. It's nasty. Sorry, sir. It's nasty, Williams replied. The worst part about this is an article from 2021. The worst part about this is that these are some of the poorest people. Okay? So they have no legal recourse. Not a single part of the local government gives a single about them. The landlords and the developers obviously have a lot more access to the council members in general. Okay? So this is precisely the reason why the tenants are literally screaming from the rooftops. They're like, no, the real criminals are the landlords, right? The real criminal is the landlord. And there's so much evidence suggesting that in spite of that inherently unfair court process and criminal system, they still have found the landlord to be legally culpable for the conditions and have condemned these buildings due to the state of disrepair it's in. And the landlord is now trying to shift the responsibility of multiple problems that existed prior to 2023, prior to 2024, to a group of Venezuelan migrant gang members that came in after the original claims that happened. And not only that, but also one must ask the question, why are these Venezuelan gangs only targeting CBZ properties? Okay? Why? Like, how come it's only CBZ properties all around Aurora, Colorado? Like, there's a ton of other slums out there, but they just keep seemingly, because that's where all the complaints are coming from against this landlord. Why is it that it's just his properties? It's sad to see people grifting to the right. For the record, APD has confirmed there's no apartment takeover in Aurora. There are gangs in the Denver metro area, and APD has long been a part of regional task force on gang activities, quit feeding hysteria and giving slumlords cover. Anyway, and it's wild because you don't have to look any further. You don't have to go to Westward. You can look at the very same local news that covered this like weeks prior to the Venezuelan gang member story. And the very same outlets that ran with the gang members have overtaken this apartment complex story were already interviewing the residents who had a litany of complaints born out of the mismanagement. We showed that as well on the coverage. They literally used this story to get, to get this court proceeding pushed past February. Aurora judge rules gang-fearing slumlord can wait until February to resolve charges. Okay? Outstanding court violations, or code violations, sorry. Dating back to 2020. Far beyond rat infestations, backed up sewage, pile-ups of trash. Hundreds of residents were evicted in the process, dating far back to 2020. These guys' evidence that they're presenting is 2023. Think about how much work it takes to uncover the truth in a story like this versus how little it takes to lie, especially when you have a willing media apparatus to funnel all this false information through. That's how you arrive at a guy like Cenk, who's otherwise a very kind person, very smart person, very progressive person, who is just like, nope, I don't believe you. I 100% believe that Venezuelan gangs have overtaken CBC management properties.